Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. This is a long-awaited episode. I can't wait to introduce you to my guest today and long-standing listeners. If you're new, you'll get to understand this. I always take notes on each show, and I normally have one piece of printer paper. What do I have today? I have a brand new legal pad. Why? Because I'm about to go to class here. I can't wait to chat with my guest today. I know he's prepared. He's going to come out guns blazing. I'm prepared. I'm ready to learn. I've got my Celsius ready to crack open here. But who is he, Casey? Who is he? Well, serial entrepreneur, marketing leader, thought leader, innovator even. He is a trailblazer in the world of RevOps and AI. We're going to dive into these things. He coaches people. He helps people. And you know what? He's done over 100 business transformations, digital transformations, small companies, large companies, Smart Brief, Cisco, you name it, all sorts of companies. Founder and CEO at Measured Results Marketing, Christopher Antonopoulos. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. I have a lot to live up to now. I've watched some of your other podcasts, and my goal is to be the most watched one. So I've spent, I think, a month and a half preparing for this. So I'm excited to finally talk through and bust some myths here. It's going to be lots of fun today.
Let's do it, man. All right, I'm going to hand you this thing. It's heavy. All right. Okay, you got it?
I do, yeah.
You gonna grab that?
I almost grabbed my son's Nerf hammer. So yeah, so I guess it's really the myth is, AI in marketing is almost always a waste of money. So most companies think it's a great investment to spend lots of dollars on AI and AI tools, and want to talk about why that may not be a particularly good idea.
Really a waste of money?
Yeah.
Shots fired, sir. You're throwing down Thor's hammer like a gauntlet. There's a lot of people out there going, but AI will make us.
Well, it's great. I read, you read a lot of articles that, how to use, generative AI. 70% of businesses are going to be transformed by this technology, and it's really exciting. I use AI tools every single day, for different reasons. But, I think that I started to think a lot about it, and it was, what's your job in marketing? So you have to find new customers and find new individuals or individuals who are trying to buy your stuff, right? And then for the clients you have to keep them happy, and you have to either upsell them or have them buy more stuff that you've got. And so if you think about AI for this, it's like, well, how is it going to actually help me do this? So I'm a marketer, and someone calls me up and says, you know what? We're not generating as many marketing qualified leads for our sales team anymore. Go fix it. So then you buy an AI tool and say, all right, well, I want to answer some questions here. How many prospects do I have in my database? What message should I use to communicate to them? How should I position that? You ask these questions, and in most cases, you're not going to get a particularly good answer. You'll get something. And then you go to your AI tool and you say, all right, can you construct an email for me? You write a bunch of prompts out. I want to have a friendly message that talks about how great the company is and why you should be a customer of ours. Right? And then so you get this output, and it's so you get this email, and you're pretty happy and satisfied. Great. I found a list of 500 people who want to buy what I have. I've done research in my database. I've used this tool. This message sounds great. And then you send it out to those 500 people, and almost no one clicks on your email or responds to you. And you're wondering what the heck just happened here.
Right. What just went down? All that work, but then also not really any work because I had AI do it for me, and then nothing happened. And that was the same crickets you had before you used AI.
Yeah, it's funny. It's sort of, well, hold on a second. We have these tools. I'm being a lot smarter about it. And so, the waste of money is that there's a whole lot of things that have to happen for these AI tools to actually work. It's like training for a marathon. And so the presupposition here is that if you're going to use these AI tools, you better understand who your customers are, how to talk to them, and be a human before you try to apply an application to it. Like I think that's the biggest fail that we see with some of these tools. I'd love to name the dozen or so that we've actually tried, but
Yeah, yeah, tell me.
I'll probably get in trouble because I'm partners with lots of them. So I better
And you hate them?
I better be admit it.
These are bad tools?
They're not bad tools. It's like bad people using them almost. So the wrong person with Thor's hammer is, you can get yourself in a bit of trouble there. But no, I think the first part of it is you talk about sort of generative AI and creating content. And so if you want to invest in a tool or spend money, then you better be ready to train for a marathon. So, what do you have to do to actually make it work and actually have value associated with it? So, one, you may find this funny, but you have to train it to be you. So, it's quite sort of counterintuitive, but you have to teach it to speak like you. You have to send it a bunch of content. You have to send it emails you wrote, blog posts, interviews that you've done to try to learn how you speak, or you have to be a genius prompt engineer. And I don't know about you, but I don't write code anymore, but you have to understand what words you need to put in that tool to make it sound right. So that's kind of the first thing. And then you better personalize it for each individual and not have a generic message where you generate this message with an AI tool, just populate a name and a company in it. Because then what happens is that same message goes to a group of people, a bunch of them in the same company. They're chatting at lunch or they're in an online meeting and they say, haha, guess what? Christopher sent me this message. Oh, really? Christopher sent me the same message. Oh, really? John from the sales team also sent me the same message.
Same
The
thing.
same
Yeah.
thing. And so, a lot of money is wasted on these tools that generate the exact same response. And it's easy to tell that came from a tool and not from a human being. So if you don't train it, if you don't go through that process, you can spend all the money in the world. You can buy these tools that will, research the customer, put in a couple of facts about them. But at the end of the day, it sounds like it came from a robot.
Yeah, it just does, right? Like, you can't hide it.
And I think that's the first waste that we see is sort of, okay, I didn't really think through the message. I didn't really understand who I was going to go to. It's still, it's a little bit customized, but it's too generic. And, I'm still pretty insulted by that. I think the next part is sort of, using AI for data. So I don't know about you, but I can count probably on one hand the number of companies who could tell me who their customers are, like active customers. Like, can you run a list right now and tell me all the active customers that you have in your organization? I bet you that the people listening to this, less than 20% of them can actually do that. And bonus points if the contacts that you have at those companies are still there.
Yeah, I mean, data is constantly churning, right?
So imagine this. You're putting an email together and you're writing some prompt and say, send me a list of my customers. I want to send an email to them, inviting them to the webinar that's coming up. We're going to this trade show in a month and a half. And so the second thing we're finding flawed with some of these tools is that they're bringing back a list, in the best case, sort of a faulty list. In the worst case, they're actually pulling people who are prospects, not customers, competitors, all those other bits, and they're getting an email generated by a tool because no one managed to figure out if they're actually the audience they were going after. So it's fun. I get these all the time, which are really funny. So we're partners of a lot of technologies, and we get this email saying, "Hey, customer, thank you for being a customer of ours for 3 years, and we have this great special offer for you." And I'm like, "Who are you talking to? Was this meant for me? Like, what's going on here?" So,
Why were you most confused, you think? Because you hadn't been a customer, or you had, but you were like, "Why?"
well, I'd actually never been a customer of theirs.
Really?
I was a partner,
Oh,
and so
partner.
I felt like I had a different, yeah. So it's a different status. So I'm in the database, and I guess I'm a customer of theirs in some sense because I, resell a product or do those pieces. But um, I get incensed by that stuff. I get personally offended, and so these tools that are used for data to try to figure out, especially who you're sending to or segmentation, you've got to be really careful with that stuff because if you mess up, you're messing up a relationship. I've been a partner of these guys for 8 years. I've referred them probably $500,000 of business or better. And I'm getting an email saying, thank you for being a customer. And there's this great sales offer. And so, that's the other thing too. It's sort of, you got like the garbage in, garbage out data database, but this tool's not going to solve segmentation for you. This tool's not going to solve what your relationship with someone is. And so we just see sort of this blanket approach to, great, I'm going to generate this stuff. I'm going to use a tool and make images. I think again, there's lots of tools that generate images. I'm sure you see in like banners for emails and all of those bits. I've almost never seen one where they spell what you want correctly in the image.
You don't. You're right. Yeah, they're artistic things. They're not made to, like, I've tried, say, "Hey, please write this in there," and it doesn't.
It's hilarious. Yeah. And so you can't, so it's sort of, I'm not saying not to use it to generate an image or invest in it, but you really have to check and understand what you're doing. So, if you buy all right, I'll get in trouble once. If you buy sort of, the Adobe product to create images, a lot of them are pretty, but you also have to make sure that that image is also not used somewhere else or something was generated similarly for another purpose. So that's the other thing we're finding is lots of duplicate generation. It might be a little bit different, but you'll be surprised how many times something that's supposed to be customized or made for a specific reason or prompt actually matches really closely with what someone else has. So again, these tools are great and they save time. The funniest experience we had is we wanted to make a company song. So we're like, okay, we're going to use an AI tool. It's going to be fun. I think we posted one on LinkedIn and we wanted it themed like a 90s commercial. And so one of the lines in the song, and it was someone on the team caught it, and they said, "Well, wait a second. Working with us is going to make you high." And so it was like, okay, well, I don't know. It was a tool that was generating those pieces, but I don't want to put anything like that out there and market. But gosh, I didn't even notice that when I listened to the song. I listened honestly to the first couple of verses. This sounds great. And then I moved on with my day and those next bits. But I think the lesson here is that, look, you need to use AI. If you want to be dedicated and run that marathon and learn how that stuff works and have the right skill set, it is absolutely awesome. The things it can do, where it can save you time. There's lots of really good applications. More, I would say that if you're going to invest in this space, you invest in sales and you invest in services for AI, because that's a lot more useful today than the marketing pieces, unless you're a really big company. I used to work for Cisco Systems. If you're a big B2C play, then it's absolutely worth figuring out, you know, how to build those workflows and how to build those rules, or how to make recommendations. You bought this and you might like this other thing. But in the B2B world and a lot of the B2C applications, a lot of these AI apps are a waste of money unless you are really dedicated to make them work, understand the different types of AI, and make sure you don't stick your foot in your mouth.
Yeah. Damn.
It's crazy to think about, but I mean, it's exciting, right? It can do all this stuff for me. I can wake up in the morning. I'm a big fisherman. I want to start a group called Marketers That Fish. But wouldn't it be nice if I woke up and these tasks were done, and I sort of checked the box and review it and got on with my day, and all those bits. But we're not quite there yet.
Speak for yourself. This isn't even me. This is AI that you're talking to right now.
Well, really is, we have a tool that can actually replicate you. And it's actually, you use 4 or 5 different agents. So you can actually create a virtual person. Again, the other thing about these tools is a lot of them are a huge time suck, is the other thing that we've learned. It's kind of like getting on Facebook and an hour later you're wondering, what the heck am I still doing here? And do I really need to know that what's going on with Aunt Nancy that I haven't spoken with in 5 years? And so, some of the AI stuff is like a video game almost. Like, you get sucked in. And so that's the other warning I would give about these tools, is that it was fun to make a song. So we generated lyrics, and there's a novelty to that, and it's really exciting. But then we wanted to make the song match a bit better with like what we do and how we work. 2 hour later, we're still trying to like tweak the words, and then it still isn't as good as the initial version, because the background music was a lot catchier, and it was shorter in terms of phrases and all of that, and we were never able to get back to sort of close to what we wanted in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, songs only go so far. That's not going to be, back to your original point, finding me new people to buy my stuff. It's fun, novelty. I will say I have done a little bit of the experimentation with GPT and the vocals, like vocalizing, just having a conversation with AI and talking through a topic while on a walk. That's been pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I think a lot of the capture and a lot of the researching is good. So let me tell you sort of some of the fun applications. Now that I've said, be aware, don't waste money, bad, shaking the finger at it. I think that if you're asking the right questions, that these tools can actually answer. So, they do research for you. They're not going to tell you whether what you're saying is going to resonate with someone or not. It'll give you some like ideas or thoughts, or like for us in the sales process, we have a tool that summarizes a company's 10K. So we know what their goals are when we go into a sales conversation, and that's really useful. Another fun and useful application I find is so Screaming Frog, if you're familiar, it's a tool that scrapes websites. You can see, what blog posts, what content is produced. You can hook that up to ChatGPT and understand what your competitors are doing. So if you're getting taken to the cleaners by someone else in your space, you can actually connect Screaming Frog to look at their website, use ChatGPT and ask questions. What are their most recent blog posts about? What are their most popular blog posts? Who is linking to them? Right? And so there's really good applications there to understand what your competitors are doing with AI in that space. So sort of that competitive intelligence piece for AI is quite good. Researching it for campaigns, like, summarize the top 10 revenue customers, create a like audience. So tell me about them. How long did their sales process take? Oh, look, Johnny was the same sales rep on all of those. Maybe I need to talk to them about marketing campaigns or those pieces, right? So if it's sort of a database and you're confident in that information or you're doing research, it's pretty awesome for all of that.
If you could only take one piece of AI tech or like use case with you to a new island, what would you take?
I would not want to take one, and I'd probably sort of fight tooth and nail. I would say that, I mean, right now, I would take the technology to research clients and prospects and customers for the sales process. So there's tools like, Tiga AI we're playing around with now, which is, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Outreach and Sales Hub and, a whole host of those tools. But what it does is I can actually take triggers that I care about. Someone has just joined an organization as the CMO. They have HubSpot, Pardot, or Marketo as their marketing automation platform. Did they go to Inbound? Did they go to Dreamforce? So I can actually build my own set of triggers or engagement points. And then I can research beyond LinkedIn to understand what's going on in the company, summarize their last press release, tell me what their objectives are as an organization. And then I can even summarize that and automatically put it in a workflow sequence to reach out to that person. It's pretty scary. I mean, you have to look at it, I think, but that I think is where the biggest promise is right now, is within sales enablement or engagement. Like, the last time we corresponded with this client was 6 months ago. Right. So I think the tool to research clients and research prospects, understand need of organization, and then have a person build a relationship based on that is the type of tech that I would take with me now. There's all sorts of combination of agents that are particularly scary. Like, you can take my head and facial features, just like those pet movies, where the dog is talking and giving one another direction somewhere else, right?
I've seen those, yeah.
So just imagine that with a human, but then you have different tools behind the scenes trying to answer the question. So they're looking at your knowledge base, how, you know, like for a traditional inbound agency, how many blogs are included in a $8,000 a month retainer, or, what does the team look like who's working on XYZ? So I think the next promise is the combination of a bunch of these different tools. And there's a few companies experimenting with literally virtual agents that look like a real human being to talk to people and answer questions and get them qualified. Really, 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 I don't know quite how I feel about that. I think for general answers, that's good. But for someone like my neighbor who talked to a virtual agent when they wanted to buy a car and then ended up at the dealership and they actually did not have that car. They drove something like 2.5 hours to get there, and ultimately they never even had that vehicle in the first place. But those tools are dispositioned to give positive answers. Your background is impressive. I love the stuff that you've done. I want to make one where you can train to be negative. I think your website really sucks. Your forms are not, your forms are horrible. And I don't know where this messaging came from, but it doesn't sound like a human wrote that. I think I'd actually get better responses from a negative AI agent than some of the happier, impressive background and love the stuff that you've done kind of things that are generated from those tools.
Okay. Right? Like a pessimist. Like it's like having a positive minded CFO doesn't really get you as far as you might think it would.
It doesn't.
I just asked ChatGPT, can you be really negative to everything I say on this thread, just as an example? Thought for 4 seconds. I'm sorry, but I aim to provide helpful and positive assistance. If there's anything else I can help you with, please let me know. Like, gah.
Yeah. So I think the trick, The other thing that these tools don't know how to do today that's really important, at least in my mind, is that when you're doing outreach, you actually want to engage with someone in a certain way. So we get all these emails saying, great, this is great article that we wrote, or, go listen to my podcast about XYZ. But they're never really inquisitive about, okay, I've seen you've digested this. What do you think about XYZ? To try to get someone to physically respond to it. So I think there's also a big shift as we talk about sort of AI tools and outreach and personalization is that, your objective now should not be trying to reach out to 10,000 people to hopefully get three or 400 people to click on something to eventually send it to your salesperson to say, yeah, this person is showing intent or they're engaged. I think it's actually just pick a much smaller group. Again, these large companies are using tools like 6sense to train on responses, but I'm talking about the normal mid-market, not Fortune 500 company here.
Yeah.
But actually write those pieces so that you want someone to respond to you or write you back. Hey, this software vendor is changing their pricing model. Let's talk about it before they do, so you're not overpaying for contacts and seats. That type of stuff. It's great response, right?
That gets my attention. Yeah.
So that's the other thing is if you're going to go down that road and take on this marathon of getting the skill set to either write prompts, understand that, start with that objective of what you want to accomplish and make sure you test multiple times so that the tool is replicating what you want rather than what you don't want in those responses. And then, you know what? It's okay to be, the other thing that I've learned is it's okay to test things as a human first before trying to use a tool to do it.
Yeah. Smart.
Right? Like it doesn't take much to draft 4 or 5 different emails on a topic or something you want to have a conversation with, and then use a tool to tweak it or write it differently or use different words.
So true, man. Sometimes we try to overcomplicate these problems, right? And just try to let me make this thing automated and magic and AI'd and everything. It's like, maybe you should just try it, try it old school manual human style and see if it works first.
Yeah, and then you can automate it. I mean, look, these tools are really valuable. I mean, there's lots of, okay, highlight an email for me, or, I think I'm, if you do a good job with even like part of your data set, there's lots of time to be saved by saying, find me people that meet this criteria, or find me customers who we haven't engaged with in X period of time. And then sort of test out messaging. And then you can train the tool. Okay, great. I want to send this type of message to this group of people in this segment. And that's awesome. The other big application is these tools like Otter AI, Chorus AI, and all of those bits, which are summarizing meetings you have into bullet points, who's speaking, so you can analyze what happened and saving you tons of time in responding. Those applications are awesome. I mean, I can't take notes for everything that I do. I can't talk and take notes, then take notes on what someone has responded, and then capture sort of next steps, like all at the same time. I wish my mind worked that way, but it doesn't. And so, that from maybe a project management perspective of marketing, like, we're going to do a podcast, we're going to do an event next week. Probably an event next week is quite aggressive, but you can use those tools to plan out, create your checklists, and do those pieces to support marketing, but they're not actually doing the marketing functions.
Use it as a helper.
So it's like your pet. What were I forget there were these pets that people bought that would like record and speak back, and then they were banned in places because they were capturing sensitive information and all of that. But were they Furbies, or I don't know, there was some, something like that. But yeah, you can use them to prioritize lists than like rationalize and say, okay, I have 2 weeks to do things and I have 20 tasks on the list. Like, for those very sort of, exact match, those type of things, these tools are really awesome for that.
Where do you think this goes, man? Where does this go in like 5, 10 years?
I mean, I think the way it goes is that there are certain things that are going to be transactional that you're just not going to be allowed to talk to a human about, and all over the place. Like, I don't. I suspect I don't know if you've been following. This will probably date this, but we look at sort of the recent strike for the longshoremen, and I don't know if you follow that, but that's fascinating to me because there's part of it that's based on salary, and there's other part of it based on they want to write rules in to stop or curtail automation in ports for handling. So self-driving trucks, automated cranes to unload ships, and all those pieces. And so I think where this is going is that for daily type transactions, you can already create a list on Alexa. For grocery shopping, you can, if you really want, you can, okay, Instacart, buy everything on my list. And so I think what's going to happen is all of these mundane transactions are going to be, you're going to interact with some tool and it's going to work that way. And there's going to be whatever that is, an automated tool that's going to pick your stuff up. Yeah, I think there's also a colleague of mine, Sean, who's on the bleeding edge of all of this, told me that the FAA updated regulation so that there's a certain part of airspace where drones can fly for delivery. No, I expect in another 5 or 6 years that you're not going to be able to go outside your house without hearing the high-pitched buzzing noise of the propeller from the drone. Yeah,
Reaching of a drone, man. We're gonna pass ordinances to not hear that.
exactly. So I think you're going to have to wear like headsets or loops or something like that. But I think a lot of the transactional stuff is going to be through these tools, and then you're going to have to pay a hefty premium for a human to ask those questions, to have those conversations, because that's the ideation, leading people, all of those bits are not things that are easily replicated by some of the tools. And at some point, even if one of them could do that, you would rather interact in a different way. Like, as much as our Yeti professor is fun, like, right, we have this Yeti character, and he's in a suit, and he looks like Charles Xavier, and
Yeah, he's right behind you.
can like walk, talk through some of these things, and we connect it to our knowledge base. You can say, tell me how to build a segment in Marketo, and it can go do its research and say, click here in the navigation. Here's how you find it. I think that only goes so far. And at some point, you may or may not want to interact with a human being to do that. So I think what is it? I'm trying to remember that movie where they have this screen that has like all the information of all the libraries in the world and all those pieces. So I think that you're going to have access to all of this information. You're going to have to decide sort of what those questions are, but you have to be very careful that you don't take it. This is called pre-sunk thought, that you don't take away that human piece. You're like, oh, I'll just follow that recommendation. I'll just drink Gatorade every day because that's on my list. Or maybe Gatorade is not the best thing to drink every day.
What is that? There was the movie where people were feeding plants Gatorade because, well,
Oh yeah, I know that one, and I'm trying to remember what it is. And then the guy, does water instead, and they're mad about the vending machine for Burger King or whatever it was because it didn't send out the right thing. But I think I'm hoping that some of the transactional things become a lot easier to do, and we can use these tools. But I don't want to take away some of like the thinking, the creativity, if I walk in my backyard and it's like, oh man, I don't like how this looks right now. I don't want to have a virtuality tool sort of showing me 6 or 8 different ways I can configure it. I want to actually look at it. I want to go to the store and say, okay, great. I like these color rocks, and I want to put grass here and all of that. I want to keep the human pieces, that sort of connectivity, rather than some tool looking at 50 different options and putting the two in front of me that they think are most amenable to me, and then potentially with all sorts of motivations behind it. What's the most expensive rock? So what's being presented to me may not be what's best or what I actually need. It might be serving some other purpose, not in a bad way. So I'm Home Depot or Lowe's or our local Betty's Azalea Ranch. You know, ultimately, I want to sell you the most expensive azalea bush that you are willing to pay for, right? I want to sell you the river stones because they cost twice as much as this gravel that looks pretty close. But it's funny to talk about that, but that's what it is. And
That's reality.
I think the reality of some of the usage of these AI tools is that people are not stupid. They know that they're potentially presented something based on a set of rules or yes, no answers, not necessarily what best serves what they need. Now, don't get me wrong, there's unscrupulous salespeople, there's scams, you see all of that stuff. But for the most part, when I have an interaction with someone helping me solve a problem, it's much more productive to have it in this format than to try to research it, use a co-pilot tool or an agent to get a background. I want to talk to some, oh, well, yes, that's great, but have you thought about these 5 other things? Oh, no, I agree.
Dude, where'd this knowledge come from? Take me back in time. Who are you? Take me back to like little you days, little Christopher. Did you know you're going to be just teaching people this stuff, straightening things out, transforming companies?
I always want to figure out how things worked. I was that kid who, when something broke, took the screwdriver and took it apart. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, if it was broken, I always tried to fix it. I always was curious about behavior and sort of how that's influenced or how people made decisions. I mean, not in that academic way, but like what motivates people to do things. Like what motivates my neighbor, who I love to death, to cook extra for dinner and bring stuff over. Like that type of stuff is just fascinating to me. And so that's sort of where it started. And everything I do, I try to figure out sort of the why and the how come, and sort of, what's behind it or how does it work. And AI is fascinating because I don't really understand how it all works, right? You have this tool, it summarizes stuff based on rules. If it gives you a response that you don't want, you have to give it the right response and tell it 50 times so it knows that's the right response. You have to train it it's about being curious about how these things work, and honestly not, as a business owner, you never want to be in a position where you're so behind a curve that you can't catch up to it. And I think that's the other piece now. AI is the new internet, new computer, whoever philosophy you think. And so whether you're jumping in with both feet or experimenting with it, you really have to understand, how does it work? What is it used for? So you can make the appropriate decisions around it.
Well, hypothetical question. Are you prepared? You ready? All right. You see, I may or may not have a time machine. I have one. It's in New Hampshire. So come visit, right? It's in my backyard, covered in a tarp. So it's 2 persons. So we get to go both sit in this thing. We get to go back in time. We get to meet you 4 days after graduating from college, right? You just got that degree. It was like poli-sci. Was that the first one?
Yeah, political science and a minor in physics.
Yeah, you just got that poli-sci and the physics. Well, that's a cool combo. And hey, I'm hot stuff. I just graduated. You get to meet that guy, that you. What do you tell yourself if you have a conversation?
Gosh, like, you should have tried all those crazy ideas. Like it's a yeah. As I look back, so I remember sort of I graduated, had a you know I graduated. I hopped on a. I was in Boston. I was going I was at the Hyatt Harbor side, and I was taking the water taxi over into the city to start work. Sort of that first day, and yeah, I think it's just try some of those ideas. I always thought that, so I ended up in finance. That was kind of the safe place to be, especially in Boston and those bits. But I never really experimented with those things when there was a lot less at stake or a lot less to worry about. Don't have a family, don't have a pet. Like there's all sorts of crazy things. I think I would have experimented with more of these ideas if I had that mindset sort of back in that day. Hey, it doesn't matter. You can try this. It sounds interesting right now. Oh, that was the worst idea ever, but you have a lot more opportunity to try those things. Not that you can't now, but there are a lot more filters and experiences around that may shut something down that was sort of why don't I just try it?
Yeah, sometimes we filter ourselves. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe I should try that, super grow grasshopper food. So, let's not eat chicken anymore. Let's eat big
Have
grasshoppers.
you done that? Have you tried that?
No, I haven't, but it was one of those silly ideas a lot, so I had some crazy like, oh, well, wait a second, they eat bugs in lots of countries. So, how hard would it be to like grow grasshoppers? They eat, crickets on sticks and grasshoppers and all of that. So why don't I grow grasshoppers? I have some other funny ones. Like, this was a bit crude, so hopefully my wife never watches this.
It's a hardcore marketing show. No one, she hasn't gotten this far in it. She's like, oh, that guy, I hear him talk all the time. So
I wanted to make pads that you put in your pants so that when you farted, they had noise reduction technology, and then they released a scent. So hey, it smells like a fresh mountain, or this is a spring breeze. So
man, you gotta get a patent on that thing. You gotta bring that on Shark Tank.
yeah, so I know that they have pads that have charcoal now to reduce odor, but they don't have ones that are noise reduction. So anyway, that was my plan. So when I become older, I would have that, and I could pass gas wherever. It wouldn't make any sound, and I'd be like, hey, that's that. Where's that cologne smell coming from? Or
Heck yeah.
anyway, so yeah, I had lots of ideas like that. Who knows? I may get at some point when I decide to do something else, or this is not as interesting, I may try to like bring some of those to life. So if you ever see a noise reduction scented pad that you can use, you'll know where that idea came from.
Man, that's awesome. You'll heard it here first, people. Dang. Well, hey man, where do people go to connect with you? Maybe they'll pick your brain, or maybe their company needs a little transformation help too, and they want to get some more wisdom. Where do they go to connect with you?
Well, I mean, LinkedIn as always. So tell you what, you have put the word asparagus in something that you write me, so I know you're a real human being, and I will make sure I write you back. So
Yeah, but can AI follow that path? The AI could follow that instruction, couldn't it?
maybe, but hopefully it's not that sophisticated yet. Well, I should say, or at least the tools most people are using, but LinkedIn is a good place. Mentioning sort of, hey, heard you on this, I will write you back. Christopher at measuredresults.com. So, I don't try to sell me something. I want to have intellectual conversations with wicked smart people. So if you have some great ideas and want to chat about things, I'm happy to review that. So include asparagus. I know that sounds weird in the subject line or in the content of what you send.
Speaking of things that make us smell,
Yeah, I know. But that's the only thing I could readily think of as sort of a distinguishing factor. And that's it. Yeah. Always happy to have a conversation, happy to spend time and talk through and help solve things. It's an interesting world that lots of people are trying to figure out. what's next? How do you navigate? And, you know, how do you think with all this stuff that you have a lot more time to do the things that you really enjoy doing it, or more weight space. And it seems like there's more things to worry about and think through. And so I'm hoping for the promise of these tools will actually make it easier. And hopefully that won't take like a decade to get there.
Dude, so good. So good.
Is your mind full yet?
Yeah. Mind is full. My notepad is this is not full. But I cracked into it. Probably more notes this time around than I would have normally done it. But man, thank you so much for coming on here. I do feel like I have like a million things I got to go put into action now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm glad that we got it to work. It took a few fits and starts, but excited to be here. So don't waste money on AI tools for marketing. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Hell yeah. And if you learned something on this one, and I know y'all did, because I certainly did, then share this with one person, 3 people, 9,000 people, whatever the number is. Just get good information into other people's hands so that they can take some action. That's thought leadership. Make that thing, make it make it happen. And again, Christopher, you are the man, sir. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll see you all next time.